I knocked softly on the bathroom door, feeling a flutter of nervousness in my chest. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, and I knew Ethan was in the shower. My heart pounded as I called out, "Ethan, I need to grab something real quick. Do you mind if I come in?" There was a brief pause before he answered, his voice hesitant. Sure, just a second." I pushed the door open gently, the steam hitting my face as I stepped inside. The warmth enveloped me immediately, and I caught sight of Ethan through the frosted glass of the shower. He was rinsing off, his back turned to me, and I couldn't help but let my eyes linger for a moment. I felt a mix of emotions: curiosity, attraction, and guilt. I wore my light robe, the fabric clinging to my body as the humid air filled the room. "Sorry for barging in," I said lightly, trying to keep things casual. I glanced at him as I reached for the towel hanging near the sink. For just a moment, the robe slipped off my shoulder. I saw his gaze flicker towards me, then quickly away, his face flushing as he struggled to keep his composure. I couldn't deny the thrill that ran through me at the sight of his reaction. "Are you ready for that movie night later?" I asked, attempting to ease the tension with small talk. Yeah, just a chill hangout," he stammered, clearly flustered. His nervousness made me smile, and I stepped a little closer, feeling a rush of boldness. "You know, you look nice when you're all cleaned up," I said softly, more intimately. The way he blushed, the way he tried to hide his reaction, it stirred something in me, something I shouldn't be feeling. Thanks," he mumbled, his eyes avoiding mine. There was a pause, and in that silence, I felt a shift. My heart pounded louder, and I took another step closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from the shower. "Can I started, my voice barely a whisper as I reached out, my fingers brushing against his wet arm. The sensation sent a shiver through me, and I saw the way his body reacted, the way he leaned in almost instinctively. Before I could second guess myself, our lips met. It was tentative at first, a hesitant exploration, but then something ignited. The kiss deepened, and I felt the heat of the water mixed with the heat between us. My hands moved to his face, cupping it gently as I lost myself in the moment. His arms found my waist, pulling me closer, and for a second, I forgot everything: who we were, where we were, what this meant. "We shouldn't be doing this," I murmured, my lips brushing against his as I spoke. The words came out shaky, filled with the confusion and excitement I felt. "Maybe not," he whispered back, his voice thick with emotion, "but it feels right." His eyes met mine, and in that moment, I knew he felt the same pull I did. The world outside the bathroom blurred, leaving just us in the steamy cocoon. We kissed again, and this time, there was no hesitation. His arms wrapped around me tightly, and I could feel his heart pounding against my chest, mirroring my own. The fear and exhilaration blended together as my fingers tangled in his wet hair. I pulled back slightly, searching his eyes. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice trembling. He nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I've never been more sure of anything." Something in his voice, in the way he looked at me, made me believe him. I wrapped my arms around his neck, my robe slipping just enough for his hands to find the bare skin beneath. Our bodies pressed together, and in that moment, the world ceased to exist. The rules, the consequences, all of it faded away under the warmth of the water and the intensity of what we were feeling. His hand slipped under my robe, and I gasped softly but didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned into him, letting myself feel every sensation, every touch. The steam surrounded us, amplifying the intimacy of the moment. The heat of his skin, the softness of his lips, it was overwhelming. "Let's not think about what happens after," I whispered, my lips brushing against his, my breath mixing with his. Let's just enjoy this right now." In that moment, nothing else mattered. It was just us, stepping into unknown territory. I knew it was reckless, that there would be consequences, but I didn't care. The warmth of his body against mine made everything else fade even more. The sound of the water masked the pounding of my heart as my hands drifted down his back, tracing slow, deliberate lines that made him shiver. "It's crazy, isn't it?" I whispered, my eyes half closed as I looked at him. "How something like this can feel so right." My voice was barely audible over the rush of water, but I knew he heard me. He kissed me again, slower this time, savoring every second. It wasn't just about desire, there was something deeper, something neither of us was ready to put into words. I felt myself relax in his arms, my body melting into his as we stood there, wrapped in each other and the heat of the moment. Minutes felt like hours, and I wished I could freeze time, keeping us suspended in that perfect bubble. The outside world, with all its complications, felt far away. The steam had turned the bathroom into our own little haven, a place where nothing else existed but us. "Ethan," I murmured, pulling back just enough to look into his eyes, "I don't want to overthink this, not now, let's just be here." My fingers brushed against his cheek, and I knew he could see the vulnerability in my eyes, the hope that he felt the same. He nodded, his hand coming up to cover mine. "I get it. I want that too," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Just us right now." I smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the hot water. I rested my head on his shoulder, and we stayed like that, holding each other as the water cascaded down, washing away everything but the moment we were sharing. Eventually, I pulled back slightly, my eyes locking onto his. "We should probably get out before we turn into prunes," I said with a small laugh, trying to lighten the mood, though my heart still felt heavy with the intensity of it all. He chuckled, nodding, "Yeah, probably." But neither of us moved right away, both reluctant to let go, to let the real world back in. Finally, I took a deep breath and stepped away, my fingers slipping from his as I grabbed the towel I had originally come in for. I glanced back at him, my heart still pounding, knowing that whatever happened next, this moment would be etched in my memory forever. "I'll see you downstairs, okay?" I said softly, my voice filled with unspoken promises. "Yeah," he managed, his voice barely a whisper, "I'll be right there." With one last look, I left, the door clicking shut behind me. I paused for a moment, my heart still racing, my mind spinning with everything that had just happened and everything that might still come. I knew we had stepped into something we couldn't easily take back, but for now, I was willing to see where it would lead. Consequences be damned.